Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Tom's Gadget Garage. Today I'm going to be doing a comprehensive end-to-end review of the Engwe Engine Pro 2.0 Fat Tire electric bike. Now over the last several months I've had ample opportunity to test this bike out, taking it on a full-length range test, riding it up 17.5 miles of mountain roads up to 1,900 feet in elevation gain. I've ridden this thing both on and off the beaten path. I've run countless errands around town, and at this point, after hundreds of miles, I am ready to go over the pros, the cons, as well as who I think this bike is right for. Now, full disclosure, Engwe did send me this bike for review purposes, but as always, all thoughts, opinions, and conclusions are my own. So what I'm going to go ahead and do today is go over all the features of this bike as well as the results of all of our testing so that you have all the information you need to make an informed decision. Now, if you do decide you want to purchase this bike and my content as well as video series has been helpful for you, I will include a link in the description below as well as any available coupons to help bring that price down. And if you do use that link, it absolutely helps support this channel and keeps the wheels moving on future reviews. So, without further delay, let's jump into the details. Alright folks, a couple high-level stats for you here. This Engwe Engine Pro 2.0 does weigh in at 72 pounds and can support a maximum load of 330 pounds, which includes the weight of the rider as well as any cargo that you might be carrying. So that 72-pound weight does take this bike above and beyond what we typically see for folding electric bikes, which is usually somewhere around 64 to 70 pounds. So at 72, it's definitely weighing in at the higher end, but I'll tell you right now, it's absolutely worth it, primarily because this does give you bigger tires as well as a full suspension, which we're about to get into in a moment. Here at the rear of the bike, we do have our 750 nominal watt rear hub motor, which is capable of cranking out 1200 watts of peak power, as well as 75 Newton meters of torque. Here we've got a motor quick disconnect, which is going to be really important when it comes to changing the tires on this bike. Unfortunately for me, I did get a flat tire on my first impressions ride with this bike. I was actually doing some off-roading, and you know, I am out here in the desert, and there's thorns and all kinds of spiky stuff all over the place, so I did end up getting a flat, but I'm happy to say it was very easy to swap out the tires on this bike. And my recommendation for any bike owner out there is to get some slime in your tires or some kind of sealant. That way you can avoid getting a flat in the first place. This bike does have hydraulic disc brakes, and as you can see, we've got 160mm rotors here as well as in the front. Here we've got our 20-inch by 4-inch Chaoyang fat tires with a knobby tread to them. Bolt-on rear rack with a capacity of 55 pounds or approximately 25 kilograms. Metal fenders in the rear and the front. Rear tail light as well as brake light, which gets brighter when you pull on the brake levers. Beefy kickstand. Plush adjustable seat with integrated springs. Quick adjust lever on the seat post so you can increase or decrease the seat height. Rear 1,000-pound HLT 100 coil spring shock. And I'll tell you right now, that rear coil spring shock goes a long way in making this the most comfortable folding electric bike I've ever tested. Here we've got our crank as well as folding aluminum pedals with some pegs to help with grip. Support for the seat post, which also doubles as a handlebar. Weather-sealed charging port. The battery on this bike is a 52-volt, 16-amp-hour battery, which is good for 832 watt-hours of capacity. And according to Engwe, that should be good for 68 miles of theoretical range in ideal conditions. But of course, we'll be getting into our real-world range results here in a moment. A nice thing about this bike is the fact that it comes with a 3-amp charger, which should take your charge times to anywhere between 5 and 6 hours. To power on this bike, as well as keep your battery secure, you do have this key here, which goes directly under the frame into the keyhole, and you can use that to both remove the battery as well as power on the bike. The frame on this bike is made of 6061 aluminum, which I'll tell you right now has done a very good job at holding up against all the abuse I've put it through. At the base of the crank is going to be one of my favorite features, the torque sensor. When it comes to e-bikes, you typically have two sensor types, either cadence sensors or torque sensors. With a cadence sensor, it measures the movement of those pedals, and as long as those pedals are moving, the bike will deliver power. So even if you're ghost pedaling, putting in zero effort, it'll still deliver power to the bike. With a torque sensor, it uses a pressure-based system. So the more pressure you apply to those pedals, the more output you're going to get from that rear motor, which gives you a much more natural ride feel. And the best way to describe it is it basically gives you the sensation that you have superhuman legs. Here we've got our front fork suspension, which is going to give you some preload adjustment as well as a lockout. Here we've got our front headlight as well as our reflector, and I'll tell you right now, this headlight does do a decent job of illuminating the path ahead. And I don't know if you've noticed this already or not, but this bike does come equipped with these mag wheels, which are really nice. They're basically maintenance free and super easy to clean, especially when you're riding around in very dusty areas. On the other side of the bike, we do have our 8-gear freewheel as well as our Shimano Altus derailleur, which is a step above the Shimano tourney that we typically see on budget-oriented bikes. We also have a derailleur guard, which will help protect this derailleur in the event that you drop your bike. Here we've got our chainring, folding mechanism for the frame of the bike, and our folding mechanism for the handlebars. So what I'm going to go ahead and do right now is play a clip of me folding this bike, and then I'll also show you what this bike looks like when it's packed into the back of my Mazda CX-5, which is a compact SUV. In order to fold the bike, you simply open up the latch, fold the stem down, collapse the pedals by pushing in and folding, undo the main folding latch, lift the kickstand, and fold the bike. And this is what the Engine Pro 2.0 looks like in its fully folded state. As you can see, folding this bike up is very straightforward, and that really allows you to get this into a much more compact size. That way you can throw it into the trunk of your car or load it into your RV. Just keep in mind that this thing does weigh 72 pounds, so definitely use caution when loading this thing up. Here at the cockpit of the bike, we do have our dual locking ergonomic hand grips. That way these things don't twist around on you when you're riding, and I found these to be pretty comfortable, especially on longer rides. To the left of the right hand grip, we do have our Shimano 8-speed gear shift, which uses this trigger-style shifting mechanism, which I'll tell you right now is very comfortable and easy to use. Just behind that is going to be our hydraulic brake levers, which have very nice pull to them. At the center of the cockpit, you do have your color display, which is very visible both during the day as well as at night. And on this particular display, you can see your battery, represented by 5 battery bars. You can see your speed, which is miles an hour, kilometers an hour. Your level of pedal assist, for which this bike has 5. And then you do get a readout for your trip, your odometer, your max speed, as well as your average speed. Now, if you do want to go into the advanced menu settings on this bike and make some adjustments to like pedal assist sensitivity, pedal assist strength, all of that fun stuff, you just simply press and hold the plus and minus buttons, and that will take you into the P settings menu. Just below the screen, we do have our quick adjust for the handlebar height, because this bike does support riders between 5'4" as well as 6'2". Here we've got our control pad with our plus and minus button for pedal assist. We've got our power button. We've got a selection button here, and then just below that, we've got our light button. When you enable that, you'll see we got a little light indicator there on the screen. We've got our thumb throttle here, as well as a horn, which sounds like this. And then of course we've got our left handlebar grip as well as left hydraulic brake actuator. Alright, so now that we've gone over all the features of this bike, let's jump straight into our end-to-end testing. The first test that we're going to look at today is top speed and acceleration. And for all of these tests, I use the Draggy GPS Performance Monitor, which is basically a GPS module attached to my helmet, which connects to its companion app, and that allows us to precisely track our speed as well as acceleration. Now, Engwe does state that this bike will get up to a maximum unlocked Class 3 speed of 28 miles an hour, whereas in Class 2 mode, top speed is 20 miles an hour. Let's go ahead and take a look at our speed test, see how we did. And we're going to start our throttle-only speed test in pedal assist level 5 in 3, 2, 1, go. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 17, 18, 19, 20, and the motor slowed there, so we'll go a little bit longer just to make sure we got it. And let's see how we ended up. All right, so looking at the data, 0 to 10 miles an hour, 2.71 seconds, 0 to 15, 5.01 seconds, 0 to 20, 14.97, but do note it got from 0 to 19 in 7.46. So getting to 19, super easy, super quick, and then it's just a matter of pushing out that extra amount of output to get it to the official 20 miles an hour. Okay, so now that we know what throttle only looks like, let's go ahead and see if we can pedal this thing to 28 miles an hour. We're gonna start in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so a little bit of a slow start there for the torque sensor to catch up, but once you get going, speed comes on really quickly. Okay, I felt the motor cut out right there, so we're gonna go a little bit longer. All right, let's see how we did on that run. All right, so looking at the data, 0 to 10 miles an hour, 4.51 seconds, 0 to 20 miles an hour, 8.25 seconds, and we hit a top speed of 27 miles an hour in 14.68 seconds. So as you can see with the results of this test, this bike is limited to 20 miles an hour when using throttle only, and that's usually done for regulatory purposes. But if you unlock it to Class 3 mode, you can get to pedal assist levels up to 28 miles an hour. Just keep in mind that it's going to require quite a bit of effort to maintain that speed. And one little nuance with this bike is the fact that once you get up to 27, 28 miles an hour, it does power down to the point where you get like 26.5 miles an hour, and then it applies power again. So you get a little bit of a yo-yoing effect. So if you're looking to ride around and maintain 20 miles an hour, you're going to find it a little bit difficult to do that because of some of that power modulation. But if you're going to be riding around at, let's say, between 20 and 27 miles an hour, you shouldn't have any issue at all whatsoever. The next test that we're going to be looking at is range. Now, Engwe does claim this Engine Pro 2.0 can get upwards of 68 miles of theoretical range. Now, it's really important to note that theoretical ranges are based on, riders usually between 165 and 180 pounds, riding around at the slowest level of pedal assist on completely flat ground with minimum stop and go in 75-degree Fahrenheit, temperatures on a windless day. Basically, treadmill conditions. In reality, you're going to get substantially less than that, top quoted range. Now, for our range test, I did use Garmin GPS, as I do with all of the range tests I do with all the bikes and electric scooters and stuff like that. And on my range test in pedal assist level 3, I was able to get 44.3 miles of range, which makes this one of the best performing e-bikes that I've tested. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that I could have easily ridden around in pedal assist 1 or pedal assist 2 because this is a torque sensor e-bike and I am able to maintain those higher speeds even though I'm using lower levels of pedal assist. And that's one of the beautiful things about these torque sensors. A lot of times with most cadence sensor e-bikes out there, they've got set speed limits for each level of pedal assist. So if you're in like pedal assist 3 and you start pedaling, the bike will hurry up, get to that top speed and coast there until you either slow down or move into a higher level of pedal assist. With the torque sensor, you have much more granular control. So, if you do want to get more range, you can absolutely ride in pedal assist level 2 or pedal assist level 1 and you're still going to be able to maintain those higher speeds. It's also important for me to note that I weighed approximately 200 pounds during those range tests. So if you weigh more than me, you'll get less range. If you weigh less than me, you'll get more range, all else being equal. Now, if you're curious what you might be able to get with throttle only, Engwe does have a stated range of 30 miles, which based on my testing of other Engwe bikes as well as other folding electric bikes, that 30 miles of range is very reasonable. The next test that we're going to look at is hill climbability, and this is going to be especially important if you live in a place with lots of hills. Now, this particular bike does come with a 750 watt rear hub motor, which can crank out 1200 watts of peak power, as well as 75 Newton meters of torque, which goes above and beyond what you're going to find in your typical folding electric bike. And I can tell you right now, based on my experience with that bike, that's going to be more than sufficient for pretty much any hill you decide to tackle. For my test, I actually took this bike up to Phoenix's South Mountain, which is a 17.5 mile course all the way up and back down the mountain. And working your way up is 9.5 miles of almost continuous incline with grades anywhere from 10 to 12%. And I'll tell you right now, this Engine Pro 2.0 passed that test with flying colors. The torque sensor did amazing. I was able to leverage many of our levels of pedal assist. And another important thing to mention is that because this bike has 8 gears instead of the typical 7 that you see on more budget-oriented bikes, you have more flexibility in your gear range. And so at no point did I think I had not enough power on that climb up that mountain. So very impressed with the results of that. I also took this bike, did a little bit of off-roading and was riding this thing up very steep dirt embankments, and you can absolutely feel that torque kick in and pull us up and over those hills. So very good performance out of this Engine Pro 2.0. If you live in a place with lots of hills, this thing's going to be able to tackle them. The next thing that we're going to be looking at today is going to be braking power, which is especially important with these larger, heavier e-bikes. Now, I did mention this bike does have hydraulic disc brakes, which is a huge plus because typically with bikes you have two options, right? You've got manual cable actuated brakes, and then you've got hydraulic brakes. And the benefit of hydraulic brakes is they're going to give you significantly more stopping power with less effort required on your end. And I've also found they give you more granular control of your stopping power. One thing to note is that this bike does have 160 millimeter discs, which are smaller than the 180 millimeter rotors that we see on a lot of this type of e-bike. But I will say that I have found the 160 millimeter rotors to be more than sufficient, provide plenty of stopping power. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of our brake tests.
So what we're going to do right now is a little bit of a brake test to see how the braking is like from about 20 miles an hour to 0 with these hydraulic disc brakes. And we're going to go ahead and test that out in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh yeah. Plenty of stopping power on this bike. We'll go ahead and head back in this direction, and we're going to do that test one more time. Brake test in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh yeah. If you want to lock up the wheels, you absolutely can do it. Not that I recommend that, but if you do need to stop in the hurry, you can absolutely do it with this bike.
So as you can see from that clip, this Engwe Engine Pro 2.0 has very good stopping power. It had no issue getting itself, as well as me, weighing in at over 200 pounds to a stop in a very short distance. It's also important to note that when I did that hill climb test, yeah, it was fun going up the mountain, but I'll tell you what, it's a heck of a lot more fun going down the mountain, which provided me with a great opportunity to test out the braking power of this bike over a very long distance. And I'll tell you right now, I was taking those mountain curves and high-speed straightaways with 100% confidence because at no point was I questioning the efficacy of the brakes on this bike. And last but not least, I thoroughly tested out the suspension on this Engine Pro 2.0, as well as how that suspension translates into rider comfort. And as I mentioned, it's got the front fork suspension, as well as that rear 1,000-pound coil spring shock. And both of those working together make for an ultra plush ride, which is very reminiscent of the ride that you would get out of like a 70s or 80s Cadillac. I mean, it's literally that comfortable. And I'm 100% confident in saying this is hands down, by and far, the most comfortable ride I've ever tested on a fat tire folding electric bike. Nothing comes close. This is ultra plush. And as you can see from these clips, I'm riding around off the beaten path on, hard packed dirt, these little obstacles here, and that rear shock is absolutely putting in the work. Same thing with the front shocks. You can see them, the full travel on those. And me, I'm just cruising around, having a great time. And I also want to mention that seat on the Engwe Engine Pro 2.0 is actually very comfortable, more comfortable than your stock saddle. It's the same seat they use on the L20 2.0, and I absolutely love that seat. Alright folks, so now that I've gone over all of the features of this Engine Pro 2.0, as well as the results of all of our testing, what are some things that I think could use some improvement on this bike? Number 1 on my list is going to be the yo-yoing of power as soon as you hit 28 miles an hour. Number 2 on my list is the fact that this bike does not have a voltage readout on the screen. Now, Engwe and the Engine Pro 2.0 are not alone in this regard. There's a lot of bikes that don't have voltage readouts, and I really think that a voltage readout should be standard practice in the industry, especially in 2025. Number 3 on my list is going to be the creak in the handlebar stem. So those little creaking noise that developed as I was doing my range test, and what I did was I took some white lithium grease and I sprayed the folding mechanism there where the metal on metal contact happens, and the creak went away. Just keep in mind with any e-bike, especially bikes with folding mechanisms, suspensions, things like that, you're going to want to keep things well lubricated. And finally, number 4 on my list of areas of improvement is going to be the cruise control. Now in the P settings menu, I believe it's P17, it actually allows you to go in there and set that from 0 to 1, which should be enabling the cruise control feature. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get this to work. So when I enable it and I'm holding my throttle down at a certain speed, it's not engaging cruise control. I hold the minus button down, which you see on a lot of other bikes. That doesn't engage cruise control. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but the manual doesn't mention cruise control. So if cruise control is very important for you, just know that might be an issue for you with this bike. So now that I've covered some areas that I think could use some improvement, what are the things that I absolutely love about this bike? First and foremost, it's got to be the suspension. Now, a lot of folding electric bikes have suspension up front, but very few actually incorporate a suspension in the rear. And with this particular bike, the suspension is ultra plush. I've mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. This thing literally rides like an older Cadillac, like a 70s, 80s Cadillac. It is very plush, very bouncy. I really enjoy the suspension on this bike when riding both on and off the beaten path. And that rear suspension is fully functional. Sometimes you get these budget-oriented e-bikes with some funky geometry in the back with their suspension. They're not very effective, or they bottom out easy, or they're almost impossible to actually get them to actuate. Not so with this Engine Pro 2.0. Very plush ride. Number 2 on my list is going to be the amount of power that this bike has. As I mentioned, it's a 750 watt motor, 1200 peak watts of power, and most importantly, 75 Newton meters of torque. A lot of folding bikes out there have between 50 and 60 Newton meters of torque, maybe 65 Newton meters of torque. This kind of ups the playing field to 75. And what that's going to translate into is much faster acceleration, if you want it, as well as much improved hill climb performance. And finally, number 3 on my list is going to be the fact that this has 20-inch by 4-inch fat tires. A lot of times on folding bikes, you'll see 20-inch by 2.5-inch or 20-inch by 3-inch fat tires, which are great. They're, they make the bike definitely lighter and a little more nimble. However, with these 4-inch fat tires, you're able to ride across a wide variety of surfaces with no issue at all. So whether you're riding on paved surfaces, hard-packed dirt, gravel, sandy surfaces, this bike will be able to take you across all of those. So overall, I think the Engwe Engine Pro 2.0 is one of the better deals in terms of budget electric bikes on the market today, especially at its current price point of $1,199. For that price tag, you're getting a whole lot of bike. You're getting the portability, you're getting the power, and most importantly for me, you're getting the comfort. Now, if that's what you're looking for in a bike, if you're looking for a cruise or something that, does a really good job of, absorbing a lot of the lumps and bumps in the road, but does leave you with enough power in reserve in the event that you need it, this is definitely one bike that's worth considering. Now, if you do want to pick one of these up, I will include a link in the description below, as well as any available coupon codes to help out with that price. And as I mentioned before, if you do use that to make your purchase, it absolutely helps support this channel and keeps the wheels moving on future reviews. But let me know if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns. Happy to address those in the comment section below. And as always, thank you so much for tuning into Tom's Gadget Garage. We'll see you next time.